Hello, today we're going to be talking about how to motivate yourself out of a sales slump. My name is Caleb Lassar. I'm a sales trainer. I've been a sales trainer for the last 7 years. My clients have closed millions of dollars and made tens of thousands of dollars in commission, and I hope to help you do the same. So let's talk about how do we bust a sales slump. And I think this is really important because this happens to us at least once or twice a year. And one of the things that happens when we hit a sales slump is we can often be really harsh on ourselves, beat ourselves up, and we can actually prolong the sales slump. And it probably feels really bad. You might have had a string of unfortunate events that have resulted in a couple of quiet months. Missed a couple of targets, a couple of big deals that you were counting on didn't go through. It happens to the best of us. So how do we motivate ourselves out of a sales slump? Well, the first thing is we appreciate that sales slumps are normal. That everyone's going to have one at some point. So we don't want to judge ourselves for being in the sales slump. We just accept that everyone has one at some point in some time. The second thing that we need to do is we need to understand big picture thinking versus small picture thinking. So another way to think about this is macro versus micro thinking. So macro thinking is the kind of thinking that looks at quarterly and yearly targets rather than micro thinking, which might be week to week or even monthly targets. And the reason why this is important is because we want to know what your numbers are on a monthly, quarterly, and yearly that will keep you in line with your goals, rather than just what's happening week to week, day to day. And this is usually the cause of most sales slumps, is the emotion takes over. So you have like an emotional week of a few deals not going through, and then the logic from your brain just starts to disappear. It doesn't start looking at the grander picture. So let's say, for example, you know that you need to make 10 sales a month. Right? And you have a month where you only make 2, but you might have had 60 calls, right? And what we want to look at is, well, what is your actual overall activity? Because if you had 60 calls and only made 10 sales and your average commission or your average close rate over the last 12 months is, 20%, 30%, then at some point that it should even out, right? And so if we take that over a 90-day period, and we look at, okay, so over 90 days, right now, you have had 60 calls, but only 10 have closed. Your average close rate is 30%, which means there's probably 8 deals out over there or out there somewhere. So you might find that the next 8 conversations that you have all sign, then all of a sudden you are 18 out of 68 and your conversion's back and you're back on track. And so this is the power of knowing your numbers. And this is, whenever I talk to salespeople, like this is something that doesn't happen. The first thing is they judge themselves for being in a slump, which makes it worse because when you shame yourself, it's not going to help your performance at all. You might get a temporary boost, but then it'll peter out and it just won't last long term. So the first thing, you need to show yourself compassion for being in the slump. Second thing is you need to know your macro numbers. You need to look at your averages over the course of the last 6 to 12 months and then forecast that. When I first left my job in 2016, I did 92K in 90 days, 96K in 90 days. And I was a little bit gutted because I was just shy of 6 figures. But I was tracking my numbers. And there was a point where I got 21 no's in a row. So I was 0 from 21, when previously I had been like 50% close ratio of the people that I'd spoke to. This was terrifying me. Right? I was so scared. I was like, I just left my job. I have 3 months worth of revenue in the bank. How the hell am I going to pull this off? And then the next 9 deals all came in positive, one after the other. So after I think it was like 8 weeks and I was, struggling to make a deal. After the 8 weeks, I had closed 9 out of 30. So the close ratio was like, I don't know, 30% or something. But if you'd asked me the week before, it was 0 out of 21. So that was a hell of a slump. But we don't know what's going to happen next. And this is the power of knowing our numbers, right? I knew that I should be closing between 30 and 50% of the people that I spoke to. So I had a little bit of faith, a whole lot of terror, but a little bit of faith that it was actually going to happen. And I just had to keep going. And then every single deal in a period of a week just all went through. And that's usually what happens when we focus on the macro numbers, is we take the pressure off the day to day, we take the judgment off, we take the beating ourselves up off the current day and we focus on the big picture numbers. Other thing that we can do to bust a sales slump, and this is a little bit more esoteric, is you can take on things like journaling or tapping, so emotional freedom techniques. So one of the things I do with a lot of my clients is I take them through a tapping process. So you can do a quick Google of what tapping is, but it works on the meridians within the body that store energy. So and I know half of the audience or whatever is just like disappearing right now, but and this what happens with all my clients. They say, Caleb, you're a bit of a weirdo. I'm like, just trust me. We're going to do a little bit of weird stuff, but it'll make you money. Every single time, they all end up making money afterwards. But you can look it up on YouTube. It's called emotional freedom technique or tapping. And so we like tap different parts of the body, which have different meridians. And the theory is that these things store energy within our system. And when we release that energy, that stagnant energy, we make room for new energy. And so what tapping can do, especially if you've been in the slump for a while, is it can free up the emotions, whatever's been going on inside of you that's kept you stuck, or if it's too hard to just make the decision and get out, sometimes you need an intervention. You need a little bit of like zh, or a little ignition underneath to just set the thing on fire so you can move out of it. So it's called emotional freedom technique. You can look it up. Another thing we can do is CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy, which is more grounded for those of you that are like, get me away from this woo-woo, this weird woo-woo sales trainer. CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy, which uses a series of journal prompts. So what we would say is, now that you've had this dip in sales performance, what are you making it mean about you? Right? This is journal prompt number 1. What are you making it mean about you? And so once you find that meaning, what you want to do is you want to ask yourself, because. So I'm making it mean that I'm a bad salesperson, or I suck, or I'm never going to get out of this. Ask yourself, because. Because I think the market has changed and the lead quality has dropped, because I'm probably just being overly harsh and silly and it's probably not actually that bad. Because I missed 2 deals last week and it's not actually that bad. Because, it's not actually that bad because I know that I watched Caleb's video about how there's ebbs and flows, and he told me about some weird stuff, but then I track my macro numbers and I know that, I'll get back on track because my average close rate is 30%. So what you'll find is when you go down, you will find a positive eventually. So that's the CBT side of things. So this was a little bit different. I hope it was valuable and you still enjoyed it. That's the video for today. I'll see you in the next one.